The census is unconstitutional because the Constitution never granted such power to government. The census is not constitutional, which simplifies government by design. This page changed with a July 2025 edit. The constitutional word search. Most people are so accustomed to doing a census every 10 years, plus the government conducts a second census every single year with the income tax forms. The people seem to never question the constitutional validity. After all, the word census appears in the Constitution twice. First, in Article 1, Section 9, Clause 4. Second, in Amendment 16. So it must be constitutional, right? The general reasoning? The government has been doing a census for so long, it must be authorized, right? So, let's prove the facts. Old dictionary time. Definition images from the older dictionaries may be viewed at Glossary of Old Words. A second search in the Constitution of the United States of America, and for dramatic effect, and better comprehension. The starting point for the census word search is from back to front of the Constitution. Hint, the two above listed locations are the only places we find the word census in the Constitution. If you do not own a copy of the Constitution with its amendments, you may use the searchable content of this copy of the Constitution of the United States of America. The very last mention of the word census appears in Amendment 16, which states, "The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived, without apportionment among the several states, and without regard to any census or enumeration." Now we must deal with two words, census and enumeration. Here, both are expressly prohibited. Enumeration, 1785. The act of numbering or counting over the number told out. Continuing the search for census towards the beginning of the Constitution, it next appears at Article 1, Section 9, Clause 4, which states, "No capitation or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken." The two words, census and enumeration, also appear together, but neither are granted. However, this mention provides a clue to whether or not a census and enumeration are the same thing, as apples and apples are the same type of fruit, or are they different, as apples and pumpkins are similar in that they are both fruits. See Guinness World Record, largest fruit. The clue from Article 1, Section 9, Clause 4 resides in these words, "Herein before directed to be taken." Somewhere prior to Article 1, Section 9, either the census or the enumeration was authorized. Continuing the search towards the beginning of the Constitution, the word census no longer shows up. However, the word enumeration appears twice in Article 1, Section 2, Paragraph 3, which states, "Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union, according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons. The actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress of the United States, and within every subsequent term of 10 years, in such manner as they shall by law direct, and until such enumeration shall be made, no place in the Constitution does it grant to Congress the power to conduct a census. The power granted is only for an enumeration. It also expressly defines the scope and purpose for that enumeration. Its purpose is for determining how many representatives each state may have in the House of Representatives of Congress. The scope of the enumeration, which is the power granted to Congress, is to count the numbers of people in each state according to the terms dictated or later amended, and that is all. How the census survived. The best practice to define words in an older public document is to use a dictionary published prior to the document signing. Since the word census does not appear in the 1785 dictionary or the 1790 Constitution of the United States of America, older, not newer, definitions must be used. The reason for older dictionaries, as opposed to newer ones, becomes obvious. For this instance, it is necessary to run a series of definitions in a timeline from censor in 1708 through 1898 to census. This exercise demonstrates word evolution in action and how those changing definitions can negatively impact the citizen's life without the Article 5 amendment process. Censor, 1708. A magistrate whose office it was to take an exact view of the people of Rome, to value the estate of every citizen, and to reform manners. Censor, 1768. 1. An officer of Rome who had the power of correcting manners. 2. One who gives to censure. Censor, 1785. An officer of Rome who had the power of correcting manners. 2. One who was given to censure and exprobation. Census, 1818. A declaration among the Romans made by the several subjects of the empire of their names and places of abode before the censors, by whom the declarations were registered. Census, 1828. 1. In ancient Rome, an authentic declaration made before the censors by the citizens of their names and places of abode. This declaration was registered and contained an enumeration of all of their lands and estates, their quantity and quality, with the wives, children, domestics, tents, and slaves of each citizen. Hence the word signifies this enumeration or register, a man's whole substance, and the tax apportioned according to each man's property. 2. In the United States of America, an enumeration of the inhabitants of all of the states, taken by order of the Congress, to furnish the rule of apportioning the representation among the states and the number of representatives to which each state is entitled in the Congress. Also, an enumeration of the inhabitants of a state, taken by order of its legislature. Census, 1898. 1. A numbering of the people and the valuation of their estates for the purpose of imposing taxes, etc., usually made once in 5 years. 2. An official registration of the number of people, the value of their estates, and other general statistics of a country. A general census of the United States was first taken in 1790, and one has been taken at the end of every 10 years since. The above 6 definitions, from 1708 through 1789, demonstrate the evolution of definitions. Without knowing the context, the evolution easily escapes detection. The 1708 definition accurately describes the modern census, an exact view of the people. to value the estate of every citizen. The 1756 and 1785 definitions dropped the content regarding the view of the people and the value of their estate to simply become manners police. In 1818, Johnson's Census definition matches the Constitution's description for enumeration. In 1828, Webster combines enumeration as part of the census definition. Then he changes the constitutional description definition to include the value of estates. At this point, Webster makes the enumeration and census synonymous, thus destroying the limited scope and constitutional definition and purpose for the enumeration. Finally, in 1898, Webster made the complete transition from enumeration to census. From here, this is where many people unnecessarily confuse the issue and go off course. The thought is that Noah Webster, as an influential character during the Declaration and Constitution, he is the best person from whom to get constitutional definitions. So, people use the 1828 and the 1898 dictionaries with definitions as seen above to declare that the census and the enumeration are the same thing, apples and apples. The 1828 and 1898 definitions are from 30 to 100 years after the Constitution was ratified in 1790. This is a form of amending the Constitution without following the Article 5 amendment process. It took just over 100 years from the Constitution's ratification for the 1898 Webster definition for enumeration to become a census. Reasons to challenge the experts. All experts must be challenged by their claims, especially when the government writes authoritative instruments used to dictate the meaning of the constitutional law intended to regulate the government's power. Critical question: does the Constitution authorize Congress to alter the types of information collected, or just the manner by which the stated information may be collected? From this, we go back to the 1785 dictionary set to define the manner, and also form, as form is used as part of the definition for manner. Manner, 1785, 1. Form, method. Form, 1785, 1. The external appearance of anything. Representation, shape. 5. Regularity, method, order. 8. Stated method, established practice, ritual, and prescribed mode. Neither the manner nor form suggest the power to change or increase the volume of information to be gathered, not even changing the purpose for gathering the information. Congress may, by rights of granted power, only dictate the process, the manner, by which the limited information is to be collected. Does Congress want to just mail the forms to every known residence? Does Congress want to have a physical person knock on every residential door and count heads? Does Congress want to have every citizen, head of household, fill out an internet form? All of these are manners by which Congress can rightly collect the limited data covering how many people reside in each respective state. At most, the information the enumeration might collect is the names, addresses, congressional district, and state, as well as the date collected. That is all. Repeat. The census is not constitutional. Newer definitions can completely alter the content after the fact, after a contract is signed, after a constitution is ratified, or after a law has passed. Newer dictionaries can alter the way people view their world and government powers. Dictionary definitions are not supposed to change the meanings of words used after they are used. The definitions are supposed to help a person after the fact better comprehend the original purpose and intent of specific words and phrases used. The annual census and the decennial census. The initial heading states that the census is unconstitutional. The word search simply proved this fact. The Constitution's use of enumeration, with its internal description definition, established purpose and limits on government power to collect information about the governed people. In the two places where the Constitution uses the word census, it sets an enumeration apart from that of a census. The decennial census, every 10 years, is recognized. What about the annual census? Knowing how to identify a census makes finding where Congress conducts its annual census much easier. That census is found in the income tax filing. The information requested in the tax forms is, by definition, a census. What most people fail to realize is that with the IRS forms every year, Congress is conducting an annual census. They collect population statistics, estate values, employment history, change of address, births and deaths, dependents and ages, etc. The literal census. The IRS tax forms violate Amendment 4 and the individual's privacy, where it requires them to include information the government is not authorized to collect. Under threat of arrest, this compels a person to bear witness against themselves, violating Amendment 5, requiring a person to report as income that which, by correct definition, is not income. This introduces the next topic, connected with the census and enumeration. It also shows how newer definitions change and enlarge the powers constitutionally granted to government. Up next, income tax versus wage tax, whether they are constitutionally applied or not. Governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, 1776. The governed by design are intended to work together as a unified body, controlling government's powers, equally protecting each other's rights. End page content.